Today I talk about uncompromising values. Welcome to episode number 42 of the Luebbers journey. So I just got off a call with a friend, and something that I mentioned at the end that I hadn't thought of in a while is that there are a lot of differences between this current business and my last business that I started myself. I helped a friend with a business in between, but not counting that. There are a tremendous number of differences, but one of the biggest differences is focus on values and focus on staying true to those values. When I started this previous business, I essentially took on almost anybody that was willing to pay me. In other words, I figured out that I knew how to sell. I figured out that I could get people to pay me money and to become clients, and I got hooked on it. And I just was like, I can sell everybody. I can get on the phone with as many people as possible and turn as many of them as possible into clients. And so that's what I did. And I ended up with 15 clients, many of whom were not resonant or not fully resonant with my core values as an individual and as a business. They weren't necessarily the type of people that I would have picked if I just had an open palette of customers. If I could have picked my dream customers, very few of them, a couple of them, 3 of them actually were very close. Probably around 7 of them were pretty close. But then I had a whole 8 or so customers who were wonderful people, but not a good fit. And it was a really important lesson. I went through a painful collapse in that business, and this is one of the core reasons. There were many, but one of the reasons is that I compromised my values in order to make short-term gains. And what I realized is that values don't mean anything. Values are just symbols. They're just ideas in your head that have zero impact on your life unless you're willing to stick to them when it's hard. It's really easy to stick to your values when things are going well, when you have, for example, your choice of clients or your choice of options in life. What is difficult is when you're faced with a situation in which there's a trade-off. If you were to diverge from your values, in my case, take on a few more clients, make some more money, then you would gain a very tangible benefit. You have to take a loss in the short term to follow your values. That's when it actually matters. A lot of people talk about values. It's sort of a buzzword in the entrepreneurial community. And a lot fewer people live their values than talk about them. A lot fewer people. And people like Gary Vaynerchuk even say, if you focus on the long term, if you're willing to be patient, in other words, if you're willing to stay true to your values when it's difficult in the short term to make long-term decisions, then you'll win. Not even from, so it's absolutely, if we're to take like a moral perspective or something like that, I think it's absolutely worth pursuing your values in the short term, even not factoring in monetary gain or anything like that. I think there's a very strong argument for that I would probably agree with, that regardless of whether you have financial gain, you should follow your values. And it does have a return on investment in the long term. If you are willing to stick to your values when it's difficult, then you will win in the long term. You will surpass people that make short-term decisions. And the best concrete example I can give of this right now is I've learned to get more selective when taking on clients. I've learned to say no to most clients, to people who are not a good fit, even if they're willing to pay me money. And it's a hard thing to do, to have somebody that is willing to pay you, in many cases, quite a bit of money, and say, I don't think you're the best fit, or I don't think this is the best time for you, or otherwise turn them down. What's happened, however, is a couple of things. One, a lot of my clients, almost all of them, are really good friends. In other words, they're just awesome people. They're people that, regardless of doing business with them, I would want to hang out with and be associated with, or we have similar priorities, we have similar values. And that's not only made my work more enjoyable, but it's actually, and this is the second thing, it's allowed me to produce better results. Because when I talk about the way that I do business and certain things that I teach and help them with, there's never any haggling. There's never any, I don't have to like pull them up by their bootstraps or motivate them or understand that we do this because it's the best in the long term and it doesn't necessarily get you the quickest results. I don't really have to explain those things because the people already share so many of my values. And this was a hard-learned lesson. I learned it the hard way. I learned it by not following it, by accepting people as clients who did not share my values and who were not the best fit, and my business collapsed. I paid a heavy price for it, and I've learned that if you're not willing to stick to your values when it's most difficult, then there's no point having values, because that's when they matter. That's when they make an impact. And those are the times that when you stick to your values, you will gain the most long-term reward, even from a selfish perspective. It's worth following your values and staying true to them. Hope you found this interesting. Would love to hear any instances where you took a short-term loss in order to stick to your values and play the long game. We'll talk tomorrow.